Okay, everybody, how are you tonight? Welcome to the Monday night look back at a classic rock album here on Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So my look back at a classic rock album, generally speaking, for me, that's anything over 15 years of age. Usually the first year of me listening to an album, if it's good, it'll get a 2 right away. Then after the first year, it can go up to a 1. And then after about 3 years, it gets a chance at a masterpiece album. Now, I only have I think 46 masterpieces, although that's about to change because I'm going to be doing an episode on new masterpieces for me that are going to be included in that list. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to do it, but that's on my way. So anyways, we're doing a look back at a classic rock album, and it's one that is currently on my playlist. And this album has grown with me immensely over the last little while. I didn't mind it at first, but it's gotten stronger and stronger, and now it's like becoming one of my favorite albums on my playlist. So we're talking about over here. Let's do it over here. Steve Hackett's Voyage of the Acolyte. It's a really nice artistic cover here done by Kim Poole, I believe. There's this one inside is even better. Yep, I think that is grand. It's almost I was going to say Wizard of Oz, but actually it's kind of Lord of the Ring-ish, but it's definitely fantasy, and it's just I think it's very very good, very well done. She does an excellent job, and I believe she does a lot of the artwork on a lot of his albums. And if I'm not mistaken, he eventually married her at one point too. So I may be wrong on some of these things, but that's my understanding. So, anyways, this album, the vitals on it is pretty straightforward. Released October 1975, about 40 minutes, maybe 41 minutes in length, on the Chrysalis label in UK, Japan, and Europe. That's in the US. Chrysalis, the US. Chrysanthemum in the UK, Europe, and Japan. And then it's also produced by Steve Hackett and John Acock, or it might be Acock or Alcock. I'm not sure. I think it's Acock though. So, anyways, the studio, released at Kingsway Recording Studio in Kingsway, London. So yeah, really good, solid album. Let's try to get a little bit better of a shot here. You'll see there's a crack in it. I took it with me on the road trip last week. It was one of the 2 or 3 albums I chose to play, and it fell and my phone landed on it and cracked it. So I'm not too pleased about that because I don't like that kind of thing, but that's what happens sometimes. So, in the personnel on this, there's quite a bit of personnel on this album. So you got Steve Hackett, electric and acoustic guitars, mellotron, harpsichord, auto harp, bells, effects, and he does do vocals on one track, and I believe it is The Hermit. Yeah, he does on The Hermit. Then John Acock, acoustic piano, synthesizers, mellotron, and harmonium. John Hackett, Steve's brother, synthesizers, bells, and flute. Mike Rutherford, the Mike Rutherford from Genesis. Fuzz, 12-string guitar, bass, and bass pedals. And then John Gustafson, I want to call him an Ov, but it's Gustafson. And Percy Jones also playing bass on selected picks here as well. Phil Collins, of course, on drums, percussion, vibraphone, and he does do vocals on Cirrus. The Cirrus, is it Cirrus? I think it's Cirrus. Let me see. Yeah, Stars of Cirrus. Yep. And then we also have Robin Miller on oboe, English horn on several of the tracks as well. And then you also have Nigel Green. I was thinking something else. Nigel Green on cello, and Sally Oldfield on vocals on the last track, Shadow of the Hierophant. I want want to say something else, but it would have got me in trouble. So I'm not even going to explain it. Okay, so we got, basically there's 8 full tracks on this. I'm just going to set up my notes here so in case I need to refer to them. 5 of the tracks are instrumentals and only 3 of them with vocals. So the first, I think it's the first 4 tracks are instrumental, and then there's a track on the back end called The Lover. Is it The Lover or The Lovers? The Lover, which is a acoustic, it's an instrumental as well. Then you got 3 tracks with vocals: The Hermit, Stars of Sirius, and Shadow of the Hierophant. I hope I'm not going to screw this up. But so anyways, I do like this album a lot, despite the fact that it has a lot of instrumental. I know there's some people out there who absolutely love instrumental, could care less if they ever heard vocals. I'm not one of these people. I enjoy vocals, in some cases, more than the actual instrumentation. Vocals are a big part of the music that I like, and so I don't mind some instrumentals on occasion, but to me, very few instrumentals will reach the grandiose heights of La Villa Strangiato. But at any rate, we're not here to talk about Rush, we're here to talk about Steve Hackett. So yeah, some great tunes here. It's very pastoral in a lot of the songs on this album. Lots of almost operatic kind of feel to the vocals, at least on the last track. He likes that kind of soft and sullen pastoral sound in his music, but there are moments where it's quite heavy as well, and there's some absolute killer instrumental on this, from guitar to mellotron to the harmonium to the auto harp. Like all these things play huge on it. That the final track is really grandiose, I think. So without further ado, we'll talk a little bit about the songs. Okay, it starts out with the instrumental Ace of Wands, heavy drum part to open, and then with a mellotron part really dominating. Keyboards are dominant throughout this track, but there is some acoustic guitar on here as well. I like this tune a lot. Most of the tunes on here I gave, or most of the songs on here I gave 7s or higher. Only a couple didn't quite make it up to that standard, and it was almost at all times it was the instrumentals. Okay, the next track out of the box is Hand of the Priestess. This is part 1. Some really solemn and very good acoustic guitar bits here. But there's also I think there's a little bit of auto harp in here. Sometimes I'm not really good at separating those two. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a bit tired here. The next song is the Tower Street Down, which is a bit of a smaller song on this, a shorter song, but I did like it. Some really good riffing here, some nice keyboards, some catchy kind of keyboard types, like instrumental keyboard types. So yeah, I did like this song too. It definitely was an upper echelon song. Hand of the Priestess part 2 starts with kind of a heavy mellotron, then some soft acoustic bits as well. This was one of the lesser songs on the album for me. It's not a bad song, but it just wasn't up to that level of some of the other songs. Then we get to the Hermit, which is the first song with the vocals on it. Steve taking the vocal bit here on his own. They sound a little shallow and a little bit distant. It sounds like he's a little bit further away, or he's in the background. But they're also a little bit shallow. They're not confident vocals. I guess what I'm trying to say. Maybe that's the style he wanted to impress upon us because of the whole style of the album, which is very kind of fantasy oriented. Okay, we got more auto harp here, I think. Some background effects, some nice flute. Sorry, my door is going to slam. Hackett's vocals, like I said, are a bit shallow, but overall this is a good tune. It's the first one with vocals, and I like it quite a bit. The next one is The Stars of Sirius. The vocals on this track are done by Phil Collins, but you can tell it's kind of backgroundish and shallow. It's very different than you would get on his Genesis stuff, but that hasn't come about yet. So then we're going to move a pastoral. Yeah, so it's kind of very pastoral, kind of a bit of a Genesis sound to it. Some very good instrumentation here. Guitars are very strong on this track. So next out of the boat we have The Lovers. This is a classical guitar bit with some strong key parts. Nothing too much. It's not a very strong song. And then of course we get to the Shadow of the Hierophant, which is epic. It's an epic track. Starts out really kind of quietly, and then it gradually builds. The majestic sound gradually builds into this grand operatic crescendo. I don't know how else you want to say about it. Just fantastic. One of the best tracks that I think he's done. Definitely not overrated, and some soft acoustic guitar bits at the opening, which are really catchy as well. This is by far my favorite track on the album. I think it is just very strong. Definitely could be on a Genesis album. I think it has all of the elements that you would find in Genesis, but and despite the fact that there is some keyboards on this, there's not a Tony Banks presence, and Tony Banks's keyboards tend to be very strong, backbone-ish, and there's not that the keyboards aren't good on this, but I just think that they lack that little bit of bite that you might get from Tony Banks. But definitely this falls well within the wheelhouse of Genesis. So if you do like Genesis older stuff a lot, stuff that, you know, maybe Foxtrot, Nursery Crime, that kind of stuff, you will like this album. It's a little bit more subdued than that stuff, but still well within the wheelhouse of Genesis. So anyways, tonight's album, Voyage of the Acolyte by Steve Hackett. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'll be back again next week with another look back at another classic rock album. So have yourself a good night. Take care.